Jason Shepard likes to stretch the truth. Marty Wolf has never told the truth.
I think we just hit a kid.
I'm on the phone.
Fate brought them together, but a lie will keep them together. Frankie Muniz, Amanda Bynes, and Paul Giamatti.
Hey, Marty, I like your new coloring. It works for you.
You did this.
Hiya. Call me.
Big Fat Liar.
So like I promised last time with the Small Soldiers review, today we're going to be talking about one of my childhood movies that I decided to rewatch and see if it still holds up. And much like Small Soldiers, I think it does. That movie being Big Fat Liar. Jason Shepard, played by Frankie Muniz, has to prove that a sleazy Hollywood producer, Marty Wolf, played by Paul Giamatti, stole his class paper and turned it into a blockbuster hit movie, Big Fat Liar. Traveling to Los Angeles with his best friend Kaylee, played by Amanda Bynes, Jason tries to break into show business, literally. The Big Fat Liar is about a kid who always likes to stretch the truth because he's always getting into situations like he forgot to do his homework late one night, so he has to make up some convoluted story to try and get out of not having to go to summer school, but he ends up having to do it anyway. Kid being Jason, played by Frankie Muniz of Malcolm in the Middle fame. He has a best friend named Kaylee, who's played by Amanda Bynes. The movie starts with the big convoluted story that he tells his teacher because he forgot to do a creative writing assignment. And his whole story is that he had to go to the hospital because his dad choked on a meatball. At first it seems like it's going to work, but then later that teacher calls his parents in and reveals that it didn't really happen. So he has to get that assignment done or his ass is going to summer school. So he then writes this big story about a guy who grows bigger and bigger every time he lies. And gosh darn it, bullies took his bike at the beginning of the movie, so he starts riding this girly little pink bicycle that's owned by his sister. And he ends up running into a famous Hollywood producer, Marty Wolf, played by Paul Giamatti. And he also doesn't like telling the truth, except he's way more of an asshole. Like he always does, Paul Giamatti just embellishes this character and just makes him the most cartoonishly, over-the-top, selfish, self-aggrandizing, just dickwad of a Hollywood producer, and he was honestly one of the best parts of the movie. Because his character is such an asshole, and you want to see him get his comeuppance, and so once that part of the film comes in, I honestly really liked seeing him get everything he deserved handed to him, because it's just so satisfying. They give Jason a lift to the school, but he accidentally left his paper, Big Fat Liar, in the limo. Marty sees it, and next thing you know, they turn it into a movie. And Jason is pissed off about this. Rightfully so, because, I mean, you wrote the story, you at least deserve some royalties for it. But no, I mean, Marty didn't even do that, because he's that much of a scumbag. Jason is pissed off for various reasons. The fact that he has to go to summer school, the fact that this dickhead stole his story, and the fact that his parents don't even seem to believe him. His plan is to go to Hollywood and try to get Marty Wolf to confess that he stole the story. And from there, it becomes one big revenge, goofy, wacky shenanigans, antics-filled romp. I mentioned that this movie is from the 2000s. I mean, the first song on the soundtrack is from Smash Mouth, so that should highlight how 2000s this movie is. Before they were a meme, back in the day, Smash Mouth were all the rage. They were showing up in TV shows from Scooby-Doo to Kim Possible, and now they're on the soundtrack to a 2002 family comedy starring the kid from Malcolm in the Middle and Paul Giamatti. And of course, we can't forget Shrek. They headlined for Shrek. So once they get to Hollywood, you see how much of an asshole Marty is. He's an asshole to his assistant Monty. He was an asshole to this wannabe actor limo driver, played by the black guy from Scrubs. He's an asshole to security guards. He's an asshole to tech guys on set. He's an asshole to virtually everyone. And he only plays ass kisser when it comes to the president of the studio. By the way, I thought it was kind of a nice touch that instead of trying to make up a movie studio, Universal just said, yeah, we'll just get to show off all the backlot of Universal. Especially considering that Muniz and Bynes have nowhere else to stay, so they end up hiding out in like the big storage unit of Universal, and you get to see a bunch of props from other Universal movies, including a movie that we talked about on Blockbusters show before. They actually have the costume for the Grinch hanging up, so I thought that was kind of a neat little callback to another movie we talked about. And so from there, the movie becomes a lot like Home Alone in that it's kids going up against stupid adults through a series of wacky antics. And as annoying as it sounds, and as much as everyone tried ripping off Home Alone because of how popular it was, this movie is able to actually make it its own thing. They tint his pool water so that he looks blue, and they mess with his shampoo so that his hair looks orange, and they send him to the wrong location so that instead of meeting up with the company CEO, he ends up meeting up with some like family that has obnoxious kids for a house party. So while they're all out at an after party for a recently released movie, a movie that, by the way, is about Jaleel White, the guy that plays Urkel, and a chicken in a buddy cop comedy. Considering we live in a world where Theodore Rex is a thing, I guarantee you somebody was probably eyeballing that as a script. I can guarantee it. We'll get the guy that plays Urkel and a chicken, and they'll be in a buddy cop comedy. I could totally see somebody trying to make that an actual film back then. While they're at the after party, the studio president wants to hear some revisions that Marty has with the script, which he doesn't have, so he's screwed. So then Jason says, hey, you know what? I'll help you with your little pitch to help win over your boss, and then you call my parents and let them know that I wrote the story. And of course, the first part of that goes through because the studio is now on board with it, but then Marty, being a complete toolbox, just says, screw you, call security, and has them booked for the next plane out of LA. But then that night, his assistant Monty and all the other people who have been screwed over by Marty decide they're going to have one final outing, that they're going to completely screw up his career by having him make an ass of himself the next day when they're trying to shoot the first scene for the movie. So after all this stuff happens, we then get a chase sequence throughout the sets of the Universal backlot, which reminded me a lot of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. On top of a building set, it is Muniz versus Giamatti, as Giamatti just lashes out into this rant about how, yes, he in fact stole the script. And he was being filmed by 12 different cameras because there was this gag they set up earlier where John Cho is this like overly cinematic type who believes that every scene needs to be filmed with 12 cameras and doves flying off everywhere. I would love to believe it's just one big parody of John Woo, because let's face it, that's John Woo's style too. The truth is out, Marty Wolf is done, and Jason is declared the winner, and the movie ends with them at the premiere of the revised version of Big Fat Liar, which was written and directed by Giamatti's assistant all throughout the movie, Monty, who was finally promoted to the writer-director chair, and starring the limousine driver, played by the guy from Scrubs, who's always wanted to be an actor, so he finally gets to be the leading man in a movie. And the credits of the movie within the movie says, based on the story by Jason Shepard. So hooray! The premiere went through, it was a success, and the movie ends with a pre-credit sequence of Paul Giamatti having to be a circus clown who goes to birthday parties. In a lot of ways, this movie is like Good Burger in that it's not a good movie, but at the same time, I really can't say that I hated it. I mean, I really enjoyed watching it again. I thought it was very funny. I thought the performances were good. Amanda Bynes is like really funny in a lot of the scenes that she's in. Frankie Muniz is a likable enough lead. And like I said, Paul Giamatti is just so over the top, and he just embellishes that asshole Hollywood celebrity type perfectly in the character of Marty Wolf, so I love that aspect of it. All the supporting characters I thought were good. I liked the guy from Scrubs. I liked the assistant Monty. Like I said earlier, the movie is very Home Alone-esque with the kids going up against the dumbass adults with various pranks and ruses, but considering I have seen so many movies that are so blatant in how they're trying to rip off Home Alone, this one was nowhere near the worst of that. Maybe it's just because I'm nostalgic for the 2000s, but man, I sure did enjoy the movie's soundtrack. There's lots of 2000s alt-rock. Like I said, it is a lot like Good Burger in that it's not a great movie, but I certainly enjoyed it, and I feel like if you're nostalgic for movies like this, and this is a movie you grew up with, I think you'll get some enjoyment out of it at least. Certainly more than the sequel that no one asked for on Netflix called Bigger, Fatter Liar.
Fatter Liar.
What exactly happened to your face?
I don't know. What happened to yours?
Reviewing that next time. We already have another bad movie we're reviewing for Blockbuster Show next time. Next time we're going to be looking at Old Dogs. Until then, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.